Hello, Juan. Thank you for asking your question here. I just saw your video. Okay, let's really start by going over this. Let me start with a couple comments. The first thing here is, and I don't know if maybe I said this and confused you, but I'm not sure what a conjunctive syllogism is. I think what you mean here is the disjunctive syllogism. The disjunctive syllogism? There is no, as far as I know, there's no conjunctive syllogism, but there is a disjunctive syllogism. It looks like this: P or Q, not P, therefore Q. Um, though I'm not, to be honest, when I was watching video, I wasn't sure how you derive this. I'm using the conjunctive syllogism, so I'm not sure what this is. And if you want, you can go ahead and try to clarify it for me. Um, unless, yeah, I'm not sure what you're doing exactly here. But to answer one of your questions, you said, what do you do with these premises? I'm going to show you what to do with them here in just a second. Um, because in order to get to the E and F, which this is the right place you want to get to, there's actually quite a few steps in between that you actually have to perform. In fact, I did the proof and I found out that, well, actually, I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I did the proof and I did it differently than you did. So let me just actually run through the proof that I did and see if I can explain how I'm doing this. So here's the first thing is we have T. Second premise here is not X. 3 is going to be um, not E and F and T, and the conclusion we're looking for over here is not X and E. The first thing I want to tell you though is that, and it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal, is that you'll notice I don't have any parentheses here, whereas you did have parentheses. There's nothing wrong with that, it doesn't really matter, but that's why I don't put them, because what matters is the main operator, and in this case it's the conjunction. So the parentheses, because the only reason we would put parentheses is it tells us what the main operator is. For instance, this third premise here, the main operator is going to be the negation symbol. The reason we know that is because there's parentheses here. Typically, we try not to use parentheses. After we use parentheses once, we're going to use brackets, and then we'll use the squigglies. So we'll use first, use parentheses, then brackets, and then we use these little squiggly lines. But ultimately, that's just, that's ultimately visual. It doesn't really matter. Right. You can see I've just written the same thing you had here. So then this would go there. I'm missing a premise there. There. Okay. So this is the problem. So the question is what to do. You're right. The first thing we should do is a DeMorgan's, and we should do it right here. Okay. So that's going to be in line 4. And we're going to end up with not, and I'm going to switch to the bracket mode. And we're going to, because we're going to sort of put this into these and switch the sign. So that's going to end up with not E or not F and T, right? And because it's a rule of replacement, I can just take this and just replace it and leave the rest of it, which it seems like you see that perfectly clearly. Okay, that's the first thing to do. And another thing here is every time you write a new line, right to the right of it, write down which lines you used and what the rule you used was, which you started to do in your last video. Um, let's see here. So that means I did line 3, DeMorgan's. Okay, so let's do line 5. You know what I'm going to do in line 5 is notice in this time, instead of just looking at this, I can actually do a DeMorgan's on this entire line, right? Because now I can actually take the negation and apply it to this and apply it to this and switch this sign. So that means I'm going to end up, and that means I'm going to get rid of my brackets here. So that means I'm going to end up with not E or not F or not T. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to do that, and that's line 4 to Morgan's. So let's do line 6. Line 6, I'm going to do another to Morgan's, except this time I'm just going to try to get rid of this negation, and I'm just going to do it here. Okay, so that means I'm going to get not E and not F. Now I have to put the brackets around it. That's going to be or, not T. That's going to be line 5, DeMorgan's. You can see what this problem really requires you to do is to see different substitution instances for the De Morgan rule. Okay. Now, whenever you see the double negations, get rid of those immediately, usually, because you might as well simplify the equation. So it's going to look like this: E and F, or not T, and that's line 6, double negation. Line 8 here, okay. Now, here's where you need to look at the fuller problem here, right? And I think this is maybe what you were referring to, because now we're going to use a disjunctive syllogism, where it's P or Q. If you don't have P, then you can conclude with Q, not G. Okay. So, but take a look here. It looks like I have a T and I have a not T. So what I need to do is the first thing I do is do a commutation. And the rule of commutation basically says that whenever you have a conjunction or a disjunction, right, if you have a P or a Q, or you have a P and Q, you can always just switch them around, right? That's what a commutation is. So that means that a P or Q is logically equivalent to a Q or P, and a P and Q is logically equivalent to a Q and P. So I can switch things around. So I'm going to switch them around, actually. So that means I'm going to get not T or E and F, right? That's line 7, commutation. Okay, and you can see here that I'm being fairly strict here, and every time I make any sort of inferential move or apply a rule, I'm writing it down. So now I have this T, so strictly speaking, I'm going to double negate that T. Once you do these problems, you can see that it seems sort of superfluous to step number 9, but for purposes of seeing and understanding the problem, it's important. So that's going to be line 1, double negation. Now that I have, right, now remember the rule of the disjunctive syllogism, right? Now I have this set up so I can get my Q by itself. So that means that if I don't have not T, then I must have this. So that line 10 here is going to be E and F, right? And that's lines 8 and 9, disjunctive syllogism. Now I'm going to use the rule of simplification, right? And again, I'll go back and we can remind ourselves our goal is this thing right here, the not X and E. I already have the X here. Oops, somehow I switched something around. Right. So that's my goal, and I already have the not X. So now what I need, I'm sorry, is I need this E. Maybe make it just a little smaller. Okay. What I need is that E. So what I'm going to use now in number 10 is whenever you have a conjunction, you can always use the rule of simplification and basically cut out one of these. So I'm going to conclude E from line 10 using the rule of simplification, right? Now that I have the rule of simplification, look, I have an E and I have a not X, and the rule of conjunction allows me to take any two premises and combine them with the conjunction operator. So that means line 12 here can be not X and E. And that's going to be lines 2 and 11. 2 and 11 conjunction. And that's the proof. Okay? So you can see there's actually quite a few steps that I took in order to get this proof. But the majority of the work was right here, where we had to do 3 different DeMorgan's. And then we just had to really just do a couple double negations and commutations, and then do a disjunctive syllogism and then a conjunction. So let me make this a little smaller so you can see the full proof, right? But you can see it's actually fairly long proof, actually. Right? So that's the proof for you, okay? In terms of your problem. So you raised a good question. I think when we went back up here, you were right to see the DeMorgan's here. I think what you needed to see, because you couldn't get to this step, as far as I could tell from what you posted, this step, you're on the right track in terms of trying to get this by itself, and once you had this to combine them, and that was your question, once you get these together, separate, you could have just pulled the E and the not X using the conjunction rule, which is what I just did. The problem is I'm not sure you couldn't use a disjunctive syllogism here, and I don't know what a conjunctive syllogism is. So really, you were on the right track with 3, but you just had to do another DeMorgan's and then another one in order to finally get the solution. So I hope you see how I did this problem here. It's a little bit of a long problem. It's kind of confusing. That trick again was using the DeMorgan's. So anyway, I hope that helps explain the problem. It's a good question, and I think it's great that you're studying logic on your own, self-studying. I think that it's absolutely doable. It just takes time. You just need to be slow and deliberate about doing these proofs. And that's one of the reasons I recommend really getting into the habit of writing these problems the way I'm doing. Every time you make any little step, like a commutation or a double negation, make sure to write the steps down as you go, because then you can actually read the full proof. Um, and hence it's a proof. So anyway, I hope that helps. Thanks for the problem, and I enjoyed looking at it. Okay.